Hey guys, welcome back to yet another video. I'm Sandeep and you're watching the camera review of the OPPO Find X2 Pro. Now before we get this started, please don't forget to hit the subscribe button and also turn on the bell icon to avoid missing any notifications from us in the future. Now let's get this video started. The Find X2 Pro comes with a triple camera setup that features a regular, an ultra-wide and a telephoto camera, which is our favorite combination of cameras and lenses to be honest, and it has seriously great hardware across all three. The first is a 48MP Sony IMX689 with 1x1.43 inch sensor size, f1.7 aperture, laser autofocus and optical image stabilization. You also get 48MP half-inch f2.2 ultra-wide angle camera, and lastly a 13MP telephoto periscope camera with f3 aperture, 1x3.44 inch sensor size, 5x optical reach and optical image stabilization as well. The primary camera is excellent in terms of focusing. It uses both omnidirectional PDAF as well as laser AF and is called omnidirectional because unlike traditional dual pixel autofocus systems which can only track vertically, this can also track autofocus horizontally. The images have good detail and sharpness and the colors are also quite natural looking, unlike some of OPPO's other phones which tend to oversaturate. If you're a fan of saturated photos, you can turn on the AI dazzle mode which will bump it up, but I prefer to leave it off and manually toy with the saturation later if required. The noise is low and dynamic range is excellent, and in fact the overall contrast and processing is quite relaxed, which is what people who love to post-process their images look for. If you want even more control, you can capture in RAW as well using the Pro mode, and overall images seem to have a warmer tone than real, but it isn't too strong to be a deal breaker. Low light imaging is a strong point, and the regular mode itself captures sharp, natural looking photos with very little noise, and there's plenty of detail captured as well, but using the night mode gives you the best results, and as you can see from these photos, you get a huge improvement in dynamic range. The highlights are kept in check and tremendous detail is recovered from the shadows, and there's some clarity added as well which increases the apparent sharpness. The ultra-wide angle camera offers a very wide field of view, but one thing that's immediately apparent is the fact that the ultra-wide angle camera and primary cameras have quite different processing. At times they get very close, but most of the time the image output is very varied in terms of the saturation, white balance and overall tonality. This is the main chink in the Find X2 Pro's otherwise solid armor. But this should be a relatively easy fix for OPPO considering how well they've tweaked the rest of the stuff, and the primary camera output is quite accurate, but the ultra-wide angle camera either goes too warm or cool based on the lighting conditions. One thing that's great is that the optical quality and image output is almost as good, if not as good as most other primary cameras on other phones. The sensor delivers excellently exposed shots with good sharpness across the frame. The only thing that requires tweaking apart from the issue that we mentioned earlier is the distortion. There's portrait distortion option on the phone, but not for the ultra-wide angle camera surprisingly. We have seen other manufacturers add it later, so OPPO should be able to do it too, else you can also do it yourself in post-production. Thanks to the large sensor, the term large being relative here since the ultra-wide angle camera sensors are usually quite small on most phones, this is able to produce great photos at night as well. It captures good quality albeit underexposed photos in regular mode, but very impressive photos in night mode with a higher than real life exposure, as well as slight clarity added to the mix, but excellent results nonetheless. And if you compare it to the night mode from the primary camera, you'd not really think that these are from different cameras, but actually just that the primary shot is a crop of the other. The color disparity doesn't seem to show itself in low light, which is good, and the shots can be made even better by using the tripod mode, but for most just the regular night mode plus some editing itself can do wonders. The ultra-wide angle camera itself handles macros as well, and a good decision to use this itself and not add a separate macro sensor just for marketing purposes. It takes good quality photos with good detail and shallow depth of field, albeit with a quicker sharpness fall off. Still very good and better than most other smartphones and their dedicated macro sensors even. The phone is also smart enough to automatically switch to the macro camera, that is the ultra wide angle camera, when you try to focus really up close and the primary camera can't do so. It'll make the switch and show a macro pop-up bubble as well. The telephoto camera features a periscope system with 5x optical zoom, and it can go all the way up to 60x, but of course that is largely digital, and while you can get photos, they are largely unusable at that range. It can either be used as a viewfinder to obtain information that is far away, say a signboard or a number that's far but you don't want to get too close to it. This can be used for that, but as for the regular usage up to 10x, you have amazing shots with great detail and sharpness, while up to 20x is fairly usable as well. I would still stick to 10x max personally, as that's more than enough for 99% of the scenarios. And the telephoto camera color profile is very similar to the primary camera, and this results in photos that seem like it was taken with the same sensor, albeit zoomed in. There are quick toggles for 2x, 5x and 10x, as well as a circular slider to fine-tune the zoom between 1 and 60x. The 2x mode offers a crop of the primary camera sensor, but it also involves some data captured from the telephoto camera and gives pretty impressive results. Noise is present in most of these shots, but then again not too evident unless you pixel peep. Low light performance is actually pretty good considering the small sensor and aperture, and this is mainly due to the powerful optical image stabilization that allows for a much longer exposure, but of course, along with the longer focal length, you also need to be more stable when shooting photos in order to avoid shakes. Night mode again makes things better and gives better exposed frames, but shakes are still apparent at 5x or 10x due to the focal length, and we recommend using a tripod or just sticking to 2x, which still gives good magnification and better results in low light. Here are some results when the phone was rested on a stable surface. Also make note that we didn't even use the tripod mode here, which would have given even better results. The portrait mode can be used at 1x or 2x, and portrait mode works very well for objects with excellent edge detection and blurring, albeit with a bit higher than appreciated softness on some edges. Still very much usable and of good quality overall, and it also does well for humans for the most part, but in rare instances the edge detection can go a bit wrong. The 2x mode is essentially a crop of the main sensor like we mentioned earlier, and while you will lose some detail, it still does produce overall pleasing results. At the front you get a 32MP f2.4 camera that's housed on the upper left corner in a display cutout, and the image quality is actually decent but not too great. Where it lacks is in terms of the sharpness as well as the detail, and the noise is also higher than I would have liked, especially on a flagship smartphone. This selfie camera seems to be the weakest link in the camera hardware on the Find X2 Pro. The portrait mode too is decent but not great, and is noticeably worse compared to the rear facing camera, which does much better in terms of edge detection, while you can see missing spots on the front facing camera portrait mode. In terms of video recording, you can shoot up to 4K 60fps, and you also get 1080p 30, 60 and 4K 30fps modes, and regardless of whichever mode that you choose, you get excellent stabilization. You can't actually turn on or off the stabilization, which is fine as most people would probably want it on anyway, and this way no one forgets to turn it on, which otherwise would have resulted in worse looking footage. The best thing is that you can switch between all three cameras in different zoom ranges even after you have started recording the video. The stabilization is insanely good even at 10x, and here is a shot where I purposely shook the camera and the BTS of that as well, and watch how much I shake it yet how stabilized the footage is. Funnily enough, the front-facing camera is kept to 720p by default, while it can actually handle 1080p. Quality is quite good with good bitrate, but there is no stabilization, and that is definitely a miss. I actually shot a few samples before realizing that it was in 720p, and I would have really appreciated a 4K video mode here, and I hope OPPO adds it as well, but perhaps what's even more required is the EIS, and that will probably make it the most versatile video recording device in the Android camp. Guys, this is Sandeep from RevAtlas, and this is the front facing camera on the OPPO Find X2 Pro, capturing 1080p 30fps video. Let me know what you guys think about the overall sharpness, dynamic range, how well it's picking my voice, and the stabilization as well. Hi Fred, hi, good boy. OPPO has also given a special emphasis in terms of the audio while recording videos, and this is really great to see. You have a standard mode where it records just like any other smartphone. You have a 3D recorder mode where the mic records 360 degree surrounding sound in landscape mode. You have a sound focus mode where it actually enhances the sound on the front and changes the sound volume from the subject while you zoom the lens. Lastly, you have a wind noise filter, and these samples will showcase the differences between the various different modes. Hello, testing 1 2 3. Testing 1 2 3. Testing 1 2 3. Hello, testing 1 2 3. Testing 1 2 3. Testing 1 2 3. Hello, testing 1 2 3. Testing 1 2 3. Testing 1 2 3. Slow motion videos are also very sharp and have good resolve detail, and seems to be shooting at 240 fps, even though the only option that you can actually select is between the resolution of 720p or 1080p. The OPPO Find X2 Pro means business. It has no time for marketing tricks by using sensors just to increase the total number of cameras on the back. No, it has a triple camera setup at the back, which is at least one lesser than practically any other device over 10,000 rupees. But it manages to give you image quality, versatility and overall performance that can put practically every single other Android device available in India to shame. I'm truly smitten by this phone's camera abilities, and I think that it can only get better with software updates. Thanks for watching this video. Please don't forget to hit the subscribe button. See you again in the next one, and do let us know if you have any questions in the comment section below.